So picture this, deep in the Caribbean, cartel subs are slipping through the waves and they're loaded with tons of coke and fentanyl precursors. They're dodging patrols like it's just another Tuesday, and then enter the Manta Ray underwater drone. This beast of an unmanned underwater vehicle is built to hunt them down without even really breaking a sweat. We're talking about a DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency project from Northrop Grumman that's already aced sea trials, and now it's basically in a role where it can do real operations against these narco runners. And is it already doing these real operations? We'll dive into that throughout this video. But why does it matter? Because now with all the surface strikes on the surface vessels, it looks like just of a couple days ago, there's been a strike on a narcotic submarine. So these semi-submersible submarines might be the new norm. And what could hunt them better than something that's down there with them, in the water with them, that great white shark hunting below those narcotic submarines, because those subs are moving billions in drugs right under the noses of the USA, and they're fueling chaos from Miami to Medellin, and tools like the Manta Ray could flip the script on that entire game. So stick around because we'll break down how it glides along silently, how it can team up with everything from Predators to F-35s, and even how it could set up for land hits that could be coming soon to a Venezuela near you. With just this week, special ops deployments have increased drastically to the region, as well as Ospreys, CV-22s. That's breaking news just of a few hours ago. A lot of troops are said to be heading towards the Caribbean as if there needed to be more. There's already 10,000, but stay to the end for what those troops could be doing. And then also at the very end, I'll be adding in the latest pulse on global hotspots, just a quick roundup of everything going on global security wise. So stay to the end of the video for that full roundup. So let's get into what makes the Manta Ray tick under the water. This thing's an extra large unmanned undersea vehicle. So that's a beautiful acronym for you, XLUUV, and it's shaped like its namesake. It's shaped like a manta ray with wings that span about 26 feet across, with a sleek body that's all about cutting drag and saving juice. It's got to be efficient. Northrop Grumman finished assembly back in early 2024, and by May, it was out in the Pacific off of Southern California, proving it could handle full-scale dives and glides without a hitch at all. So why wouldn't it be in the theater right now, at least doing some intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance? It's not confirmed in the theater, but to me, it just makes sense. It already basically passed its trials in 2024. But the key here is its glider tech. It uses buoyancy engines to rise and fall like a yo-yo. It harvests energy from ocean currents and waves, so no constant props chewing through batteries. That means it can loiter for months on end, covering thousands of miles without sacrificing for a recharge, without sacrificing its ability to continuously monitor the enemy. And its payload bays are modular, so you can swap in sensors or whatever fits the mission. Underwater Hellfire, anyone? That would just be pretty epic, but there's also options for mini torpedoes to be loaded on this thing. But it's got redundant systems to keep it stealthy if something glitches. So the top speed of it is about 5 knots. So it's not incredibly fast. So it looks like it's about a 6 mile per hour submerged speed, but that's plenty when you're basically playing hide and seek in the deep blue and you want something to continuously be down there and not just chew through all its batteries in one big dash. So it's not really flashy when it comes to the speed, but it's super efficient. And that's exactly what you want when you're hunting cartels for weeks on end and passing that information to salivating drone operators up ahead. Yeah, drone operators, we know you're salivating at this point. Okay, now on the brains and the bite that this thing has. So the Manta Ray's autonomy is next level. It runs on AI-driven pathfinding that lets it map currents, avoid obstacles, and adapt to threats without a human having to yell orders from far away. And its guidance comes from inertial navigation that's paired with acoustic sensors. So think sonar arrays that ping out low frequency waves to spot holes or props up to 10 nautical miles away in murky water. No onboard weapons have been released yet that it could carry, but we'll talk about some options here in a little bit. It's a force multiplier more than an attacker. So really it's there to spot these narco subs or any other assets that the enemy might have and then pass that information onto other systems that do the striking themselves. It can also deploy sonobuoys, those are underwater listening devices, can also mark targets with acoustic beacons for follow-on hits, but the autonomy levels is really where it shines. It's got full waypoint autonomy for pre-planned routes, which is just awesome. You can set it and forget it. This is the next thing when it comes to underwater UAVs. But you can shift to reactive mode if it sniffs trouble, like a cartel semi-submersible that's ghosting along at, let's say 7 to 8 knots. It relays data bursts via low-profile antennas or even laser communications if it pops up to a periscope mast height. And yeah, it could cue land-based assets too. Imagine feeding coordinates to a Tomahawk launcher of an on-beach site that's an unload site for different narcotics. It's part of their whole narcotic infrastructure. So all this runs on edge computing, so decisions happen, down there where it's actually swimming, and it doesn't have to wait for satellite links. It doesn't have to wait to surface. So that keeps it quiet, quick, and clandestine, all in one little package. So it's essentially like this thing can handle a payload without spilling a drop. All right, so the bad guys in this equation, the cartel narco submarines, the surface vessels, but those submarines are homemade semi-submersibles that are patched together with fiberglass and basically duct tape in Colombian jungles. They're low profile, they ride just below the surface, and they're about 6 to 10 knots, which is about 8 to 10 miles per hour. They haul up to 8 tons of product, could be a massive amount of product per run without much of a radar signature, and they're hard to spot from the air unless you're basically right on top of it. Overall, there's been about 100 of these narco subs that have been recorded as being seized since 2020, but most of them slip through, especially the unmanned ones that can pop up now with Starlink for remote control. So that's the next level, is they want Starlink to remote control their actual narco subs. Again, the guerrilla warfare tactics that are going to come from the cartels, that's just what they're going to do. They're going to continuously go guerrilla style. But the surface boats, those are go fast with triple outboard motors. So massive motors on these things. The go fast boats themselves are way faster than the semi-submersibles. Those things can hit about 50 knots. There's also motherships that could be disguised as big fishing trawlers that could offload smaller boats to do offloads themselves on austere islands off the shore. But the threats are amping up with armed escorts said to be coming in from Venezuela, but mainly that's probably going to be AK-toting spotters that are on the deck. So whether they would be able to strike an MQ-9, I mean, that would be like the lucky BB with an AK-47, but they might be carrying man pads at this point as well, which have about a 3 nautical mile range. So those could definitely reach up and touch an MQ-9 or even a fighter if it was up above it. So at this point, we're entering a regime where there could be these armed escorts. Maduro has said the Navy is going to do it. We haven't quite seen that yet. And there's been recent busts. It's reported that Colombia actually nabbed an autonomous narco submarine in July of 2025, but the cartels are showing that they're going robotic. So they see that the US is using drones, so they're essentially going to start using drones as well. But they're still going to be vulnerable to persistent underwater eyes like the UUV. The US Navy's ramping up patrols with strikes that have sunk multiple boats, but the coverage can be thin for that massive amount of ocean where the naval blockade is said to be focused on. And that's where something like the Manta Ray comes in. It's persistent, it's unseen, and it basically turns the ocean and the coast of Venezuela into an entire metal net. So let's walk through a hypothetical situation from how these operations could play out based on real Navy exercises and recent cartel bust patterns. So say it's midsummer in the Caribbean, intel from a SIGINT, that's a signals intelligent, for all you acronym lovers out here, sweep. It picks up chatter about a big load heading north from Venezuela. A narco semi-sub is flanked by 2 go-fasts that are all linked via encrypted satellite phones. Manta Ray gets tasked from a forward base in Key West. It slips off of a ship 200 nautical miles southeast of Jamaica, and it glides down to 300 feet, and it's using an ocean current. So it goes to the level of the current that it wants that helps it get into the battle area. Over 48 hours, it shadows the sub's wake, it shadows other vessels' wakes, and its sonar locks the faint prop signature without giving away its own position. Meanwhile, an MQ-4C Triton, that's a high-altitude maritime drone, those things are beasts, it's orbiting at 50,000 feet, and it cross-cues electro-optical feeds to spot the surface runner as they start to break cover and get closer to the surface. The manta ray drops a spread of sonobuoys, painting the sub's track for the team. That data pings to an Aegis destroyer like a Burke class with its SPY-6 radar array, which vectors in an MQ-9 Reaper. That's a Predator drone, basically the workhorse of the drone fleet at this point, and it has over-the-horizon eyes because it's flying up relatively high. The Reaper's Lynx radar confirms the go fasts that's zigzagging at 40 knots. Now the fighters join in. So a pair of F-18 Super Hornets that sling off of the USS Ford launched from about 100 nautical miles away. They get into the target area. They receive target information from that MQ-9 drone, and that's teamed up with the information from the UUV. So basically the highest fidelity data on where this narco trafficker is going, where they might be headed, and where they might be offloading. At that point, the F-18s roll in, dropping GBU-12s laser-guided bombs, splashing any of the go-fast boats or some of those semi-submersible narco vessels. But the mission's not over yet. It also includes getting information on land strike areas that could be carried out in the next few days. So the F-18 passes off the AOR, the area of responsibility, to F-35s that then begin to communicate with the manta ray's underwater real-time feed, and it gets data from that to ping any coastal areas where the offloads of these fentanyl precursors might be happening. And then the Aegis system ties it all together, getting that information directly back to headquarters. So now headquarters can basically build their targeting package. Everybody thought this would just be a simple strike on some narco boats, but at the end of the day, when you're close in to the coast like that, you might as well take advantage of that UUV's ability to use sonar and other information to figure out where a lot of these offload points might be along the coast. And then the Navy is constantly going to be tweaking the information that's going to the UUV, so they'd be tweaking the autonomy, tweaking the algorithms for even tighter integration with all the different systems, and having the Aegis system talk to this underwater drone is probably the biggest force multiplier of it all. So having the ability to get that drone's information to special operators, to F-35s, to the teams that are planning the ground strikes, that's where the real star of the show comes in, and how that UUV can help paint the different areas where these semi-submersibles are loading and offloading. So the UUV to me is really the glue that's holding everything together, and it's giving real-time factual data to all the different systems. Okay guys, as promised, quick global security roundup. So we'll start with the conflicts that are going on. Thailand's F-16 dropped ordnance from about 50 nautical miles into Cambodia yesterday, and they torched what Bangkok calls scam hubs from Phnom Penh's screaming provocation. Now there's over 200 dead. China's envoy is pushing for a ceasefire, while U.S. mediators are now scrambling to get that ceasefire to take place. But again, China is meddling in the area, so I'll keep you guys posted on that one as it develops. On the Venezuelan front, some more information. We've already covered quite a bit of it in this video, but there's been multiple semi-submersibles that have been sunk over the last week. Maduro is complaining to the UN that the U.S. is now executing piracy. Russia's shipping anti-ship missiles their way, supposedly. That's the big breaking news out of Russia, saying that they will back the Maduro regime. And then China is saying they support Maduro as well. Obviously, they're getting most of their oil from Maduro. And speaking of China, their air power is ramping up with more incursions into the South China Sea, specifically the Taiwan Straits, with their J-20. So that's kind of a powder keg at this point. And on the aviation side of things, looks like a Falcon 50 bizjet went down near Ankara this morning, which wiped out Libya's army chief. That's tragic. And then on the tech update side, Anduril's Fury drone nailed its first armed test run in Arizona, slinging a mock Hellfire. That collaborative combat aircraft program is heating up for 2026 wingman roles. I'll keep you guys posted as that develops. Maybe I'll do a full video on that Anduril Fury drone. And then we've got the B-21 Raider. Updates are happening at Ellsworth Air Force Base. $1.6 billion in infrastructure being tuned in there. So I'll keep you guys dialed in as that situation develops, and as we potentially see the B-21 maybe being used for the next Iran strikes. So there you have it, guys. There's the roundup of global security, but the Manta Ray itself, it's not just a lab toy, in my opinion. It's gearing up to choke off cartel lifelines with that underwater edge, and it's teaming seamlessly with the full spectrum from drones to jets, and it ties right into the Navy's push for robotic fleets in these drug lanes. So why not have these drug lanes just constantly monitored by these robotic fleets? And that's Operation Southern Spear right now, and I would bet they start to lean more heavily on UUVs, RQ-4s, these different assets that can really monitor the exact lanes that we know that these narco terrorists are transiting. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think it's worth it having these UUVs out there doing what they do? Would love to hear overall what you think about these conflicts. Let me know in the comments below. And then if you would, follow me on X, follow me on Instagram, and then watch one of these videos that pop up right here. When you watch these videos, it helps the channel grow, and I would greatly appreciate it. There's also a link for channel memberships down in the description. So I'll see you guys on one of these videos right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.